Hello everyone and welcome back to KWT's Microsoft Outlook Basics course. Today we're going to talk about some of the basics of handling emails. Other than receiving and reading emails, there are three actions you can take for your outgoing emails. You can create a brand new email, you can reply to an existing email, or you can forward an existing email. While this is probably common knowledge to everybody, it is important that you understand how each of these functions behaves, as it can impact other things down the line, especially when it comes to filtering and searching for emails. And this not only impacts you, but it also impacts the people that you are communicating with. So note the prefixes in the little image on the screen, where a new email has just the subject line test, whereas a forward will be prefixed with FW and a reply with RE. The other major difference between forwards and replies that you have to keep in mind is that forwards will include any attachments on the email, reply will not. And I know a number of times I've had someone reply to an email and reference the attachments, and I've had to go back to them to ask them to forward the attachments along. Or vice versa, you could inadvertently forward attachments to someone who perhaps should not receive them. Now you can also apply a different signature to forwards and replies compared to new emails. And the idea here being is that you may want to have a formal signature on a brand new email when you're initiating a conversation with somebody. Whereas once you've got the conversation going and you're replying back and forth, you can slip back to a more casual signature. So let's take a look at that. And we'll start with looking at our signatures. So I go to File, Options, Mail, and there's a button here for signatures. Now we will be in and out of this area of Outlook a number of times throughout the course, and you will get a chance to see many of these other options. But for now, we'll just jump into signatures. And you can see here that I have a fairly comprehensive signature for my new emails. It includes my email and a phone number. And that is assigned to my new messages under the name Barb. But I have a second signature that I use for replies and forwards called Barb2. And it looks like this. It's just my name. So again, the idea being is once I've started the conversation with you, as we continue on, my signature will be reduced down so we're not cluttering up the emails as we move along. Okay, so back here in my inbox, we have an example of a brand new email, and you can see the subject line is just new mail, or an example of a reply from that same conversation. We have RE prefixing the subject line, new email. And here's a couple of examples of a forward that somebody has sent me, and they're prefixed with the FW. Now, these two emails have the same subject line, so I can actually view them in what we call a conversation view. And I'm just going to apply this to this folder. And I'm now reduced to one line for the subject, new email. But I can expand that out and see everything that's within that conversation, everything that has occurred. So here at the bottom is the first email that I received. It was the brand new email. Then I replied back to it, and you can see the reply here as well. And you'll see that it says that that email is sitting in my sent folder. So that's a good thing to know, because Conversation View does not require all the emails to be in the same folder. It will pull them in from anywhere, your PSTs, your inbox, anywhere at all. And then finally, a reply I sent back to the person. This is really handy when you have conversations that include multiple people and span a significant period of time. So you can go and investigate what really happened in that conversation over the time and see everybody's contribution to that conversation. So while we're in here, we want to just take a look at new emails. And you'll notice I have 4 boxes here. Now it's possible you are only seeing 2 and CC. If you find you're not seeing the BCC and the from, you can go to options and select them from here. If you did not want to see them, you just unselect them and they disappear from view until you need them again. But if you do want it included in a regular basis, every time you send an email, you just select it from options. We'll talk a little bit in a little while about the difference between CC and BCC. But the other thing I want to mention while we're here is that if I reply to an email, so I bring my email up, I have a choice between reply and reply all. And it's critical that you understand the differences between those and the potential dangers of using reply all without thinking. So let's move on and we'll talk about that. Reply all is potentially dangerous. You have to be very careful that you don't use it thoughtlessly, or you can potentially irritate or annoy some people in power over you, especially in a corporate environment. So here's a few guidelines on using reply all, or more specifically, when you should not use reply all. Do not use reply all to comment on an email thread with just a great or thanks. You are going to annoy every other coworker who is on that email. Do not use reply all to make a private comment. That little private joke that you want to make with your buddy Joe, if you include it and inadvertently select reply all, will now be seen by everybody on that email thread. This can be a problem if your content is inappropriate and people have been fired over issues like this. Do not use reply all just to let everybody know that you read the email and that you contributed something to it. Reply directly to the person who sent it to let them know, but don't reply to everybody. You just annoy your coworkers again because it looks like you're just looking for congratulations. Do not use reply all to start a new conversation on another topic. I understand that it is sometimes easier to just use reply all on an existing one because then you get everybody included who should be. But the problem is if you don't appropriately change the subject line and the content of the email, you are just going to confuse lots of people. So be very careful of reply all. Make sure you are aware of who all has received that email before you determine how to respond, if you need to respond at all. The copy options. Does anybody actually remember using carbon paper? Probably not, but that's okay. This is where the terms come from. CC is for carbon copy, and BCC is for blind carbon copy. And we don't actually have to know how carbon copy used to work, but it is important to understand the differences between CC and BCC. If you are CC'd on an email, all the other recipients will see your email. If you are BCC'd, no other recipients know that you have seen that email. There is really only one good reason for using blind carbon copy, and that is if you want to send an email to an unrelated group of people and you don't want to share addresses, email addresses among the group. For example, you may be sending a change of address to all of your vendors. You don't necessarily want your vendors to see all the other vendors. There might be competitors in there, and you certainly don't want to share email addresses among them. It is very tempting to use blind carbon copy to secretly report on an employee to their manager. I highly discourage this practice. I personally think it's unethical. If I want to speak to your manager about something in your behavior, I will talk to your manager directly, or I will include a visible carbon copy so that we all know where we stand. I think it's much better to get things out in the open and discuss them rather than sort of sneaking around behind someone's back. There is also a very potentially dangerous result of using a blind carbon copy to someone's manager, and that is if the manager does not notice that they are blind carbon copied on the email. They may reply to it, and all of a sudden everybody who's on that email thread is aware that the manager was notified secretly. This will not only break trust with everybody in the email chain, but I guarantee that the manager is going to be feeling embarrassed about it. There is a feature in Outlook 2016, 2019, and 365 called BCC Warning, so that if you are blind carbon copied on an email and you attempt to reply to it, it will give you a small warning under mail tips that indicates, hey, this was a blind carbon copy. Are you sure you want to reply? That's a great little feature, but it is very small text in the header of the email, and it's something that people can easily miss. So there we go. You want to be very careful when replying to emails and how you make use of carbon copy and blind carbon copy. Take a good look at who all is included on an email before you decide how and if to reply. Thank you very much, and this is the end of this module.